Rafa Nadal is looking better and better to me the more I watch his matches. I know I just put a video out that said Danny Medvedev is the favorite, and sure, he should be the favorite, but Rafa Nadal, how can you not like him? And I gotta tell you, the more I watch him, the more he's starting to remind me of the last time I really liked him at the Australian Open, and that would be 2019 Australian Open. I know it was 3 years ago, but let's take a look, and then I'll tell you why he reminds me of 2019. What happened back in 2019 to Rafa Nadal? Every match was straight sets. Even the loss to Novak Djokovic, 6-3, 6-2, 6-3. That's probably what most people remember right off the top when you think about 2019 Australian Open and Rafa Nadal's run. But he looked incredible up until that moment. Taking out Ducky, taking out Ebden, Alex de Minaur, Tomas Birdman Berdych, Tiafoe, and then Tsitsipas, all in straight sets. And no one really pushed him. The Duck got him at 7-5 in that final set of the first match. And then Birdman, and you got to realize something. This is like right before Birdman retired. His body was broken. And that was basically it. That was him squeezing the last bit out of the toothpaste, the last bit of toothpaste out of the toothpaste tube in that 7-6 tiebreak third set. And then, of course, Novak Djokovic took him out in the final of the tournament. So while most people remember the beatdown in the final from Djokovic to Rafa that year, the thing I really remember is how I felt so good. I think I might have even been crazy enough to predict Rafa winning in the final against Djokovic, or maybe I said he was going to lose in 5 sets, but I thought it was definitely going to be a lot closer than that. Rafa was taking the ball so much earlier than usual and serving more aggressive. Well, he's doing it even more now. If you saw his first round match against Marcus Giron, open it up, deuce court, serve out wide, the flat bomb for an ace. That was a serve that we used to not really see Rafa hit, if at all. And now he hits it pretty frequently. And same thing, we're so used to seeing Rafa go in the ad court out wide with a slider, and now we're seeing him busted up the tee flat pretty hard for aces. We saw this before. This isn't new to this year. It's really something we saw with Carlos Moya joining on the team. But Rafa's getting better at it, and he's back on that baseline again. And if you don't believe me about how important it is to take the ball early and get on the baseline, jump up here, Mr. Goat, if you'd like. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Goat. If you don't believe me, listen to the former world number 3 who has a winning head-to-head record against Rafa Nadal. He's beat Federer, he's beat Djokovic, he's beat everybody. Nikolai Davydenko, who Rublev used to make fun of Medvedev when they were younger by calling him that name, Davydenko. Something to do with the hair, I think. Medvedev, he's on his way there.
Who hit a bigger forehand?
The biggest forehand, from everyone. Still Federer. Because why? He's not biggest, he's the fastest. The most fastest forehand from Federer. He give me no chance. He hit ball like long. If he hit the forehand, say, to the baseline, like he moved me back couple meters back from baseline. I think like 1-2 meters I go back, and then I lose situation. I lose my control because then I start to play shortly. And then he just started to press me, and he go to the volley. And guys like Del Potro, like Soderling, everyone, he stayed from the baseline, couple meters from the baseline, and hit from there. Okay. I have time to prepare. I have time to get back. I have time to control always forehand, always game from everyone. This is only Federer come to the pressing, like get from forehands, like say. Well, anyone, no Djokovic, no Nadal, no anyone, no Murray, nobody hit forehand so get pressure from because Federer play not only fast, he not big forehand, he's fast forehand and go to the lines. Very go, so fast and backhand forehand, you don't know really. You start to move and you cannot attack anymore. You already defense, like say.
Now that was Davydenko on the Functional Tennis Podcast, which I'd never heard of before, but I heard Robbie Koenig commentating on an Australian Open match this fortnight and referencing that interesting podcast with Davydenko, who, of course, worth hearing what he has to say because he's beat all of the top players, even though he retired, I want to say like 2012, around the time Andy Roddick retired, something like that, about 10 years ago. Anyways, when he says it's not the biggest, it's the fastest, what he means is it's on you the fastest because Federer his footwork and Nadal, one thing you could say is the Nadal footwork and aggressiveness with the footwork, pretty similar to what Roger Federer is so good at with setting up that forehand and taking it very quickly. Usually we see Rafa running around backhands using that fancy footwork, but in this tournament, I feel like we're seeing him use it to take that ball earlier than ever. And it reminds me of 2019, where if you will remember in the final, what did Rafa do? He stopped doing that. He didn't think it would work against Djokovic. He thought the only way he could beat Djokovic would be to back up. Now, I know he dropped a set to Karen Khachanov last night, but that third set, the biggest difference was on the return of serve. Rafa started backing up. He had been taking it a lot earlier for the first two sets where he destroyed Khachanov, and in that third set, he backed up. He lost a little rhythm, didn't take the ball quite as early. He drops that set. He still almost wins that set if you think about it, because Khachanov really had to do, Khachanov threw everything at it. That he was squeezing the last bit out of the toothpaste tube as well in that third set, and then we saw what happened in the fourth set. Anyways, Rafa's looking very good in this regard. And going back to Davydenko, when he says it's not the biggest, it's the fastest forehand, and that's what makes it the best, he's definitely talking about Federer and how he's always moving in, taking that ball earlier, which, of course, robs you of time. It feels like you're rushed. I think that's why he used the word fastest. Davydenko's native language is, of course, Russian. He used the word fastest, I think, because that means, you are the most rushed. You're running out of time. And when these guys, like, he talked about Soderling and Del Potro hitting really big forehands, they're further back. So even though they're hitting it very hard and it's coming fast, you have a little more time to set up for that next ball. And there's nothing worse than Federer doing that and then hitting the lines. Now, if you watched Nadal last night, there were a lot of forehands hitting the line. So we got a few things going for Rafa. If you're in the Rafa camp, you want him to win this tournament, you think he is the real favorite over Medvedev or Zverev, who are one of those three is most people's favorite, and everyone else is a crazy person. So Rafa really dialing in that forehand up the line, hitting the lines, hitting the corners. Same thing with the serve, and very, very aggressive with the footwork and taking the ball earlier and robbing his opponents of time. As the commentators were pointing out on ESPN Plus, when Rafa beat Khachanov last night, they said, when Rafa is back further, you see Khachanov playing offense. When he's taking the ball earlier, you see Khachanov, blocking some shots, ground strokes, not returns, and really just playing defense the whole time, unable to play offense at all. Now, I know Zverev is going to be a lot tougher, but do you really trust that guy to take out Rafa when he's got the bit between his teeth? Let's take a look at the draw and talk about how this might be the time for Rafa to get number 21. Everyone thinks it could be the French Open. Rafa, lower expectations than usual. This draw is really opening up nice. Now, Karatsev, I didn't think he was going to beat Rafa, but he could have been challenging for sure. Mannarino, I don't know if it's going to be a total beatdown city match, but Mannarino, really, does anyone find him too threatening to Rafa Nadal? In his defense, Mannarino is playing maybe the best tennis of his life right now. He looks really good. He is also a guy who robs you of time. You might watch him, and it looks like he's not hitting the ball very hard, except for when he's hitting against someone like Karatsev. It looks pretty hard when Karatsev's pounding the ball big, and Mannarino's taking it so early and redirecting all that power. But you hear that word again, early. Mannarino is a master of footwork, defense, and taking the ball very, very early. Mannarino, in a long match like that, he doesn't look as tired. I'm sure he was, but he's kind of a lightweight guy. So, running around, playing all that defense, it's not going to wear him out the same way it did Karatsev, who kind of physically fell apart in that match. Also, another thing going for Mannarino, same thing I've noticed with Nadal. He's a lefty, and he's hitting his spots. He's serving very, very well. Mannarino even coming to net, using the net effectively, but not like Nadal. Nadal's better at that than Mannarino. And that was ultimately a big reason why Karatsev couldn't win that match, because he had to do it the hard way. There were opportunities that he created with his power game and the ground strokes where he didn't come into net and finish off when he really could have, should have, and Rafa Nadal definitely would have. So let's just say Rafa gets through Mannarino in 3 sets, maybe 4, but I'm going to go with 3 sets for that one. Shapo, who amazingly, I got to compliment this guy, like Tsitsipas, unable to have a block return, which is basically, the ball's coming very fast in the serve at the pro level, and you play it like a volley. Roger Federer, the master of doing this. Well, Shapovalov looked pretty good doing it against Riley Opelka. I give him some chance to get the upset here over Sasha Zverev, especially knowing how shaky Zverev can get and how Shapo can really step up sometimes, right? I make fun of him a lot. I've given Shapo a hard time for years now, but I'll give him a shot, especially considering, Zverev is like the biggest server right now, but Opelka is actually, a bigger first serve. And you could argue Opelka's second serve is better than the Zverev second serve. So if Shapo just came through that server, is blocking big, monstrous first serves back with some great success, I think he's going to have a chance to do it against Sasha Zverev. So we have a shot there of seeing Shapo come through. But either way, I like Rafa Nadal's chances here to come through this section. Remember, this will be his quarterfinal. Let's take a look at his semifinal, where he could get Berrettini, who barely survived an incredibly exciting match against Carlos Alcaraz. Berrettini's serve really saved him. Early in the match, I thought Alcaraz was going to win just in the first 3 or 4 games. It felt really tight, and then Berrettini pulled away in that first set. This is pretty massive for Alcaraz. He said he was very proud of himself the way he was down 2 sets and was able to come back like that, bringing it all the way to a 5th set tiebreaker. I think Pablo Carreño Busta might be able to run Berrettini, run him down. This might have taken a lot out of Berrettini. He also rolled his ankle. Monfils rolled his ankle in a straight sets win over Christian Green that felt very tight early on. And then it looked like Christian Green was getting pretty frustrated with some fans in the crowd were a little extra rowdy. And then we've got a great story here because a Serbian has taken that spot of Novak Djokovic. I thought Sonego would win this match. Kecmanovic comes through. Another great story in Monfils, who's looking very focused here. But any of these guys, they are not going to stop Rafa. So obviously, the biggest challenge to Rafa is that quarterfinal with Sasha Zverev is what we're all expecting. Possibly Shapo. We'll give Shapo a decent chance, actually. I'll give him a decent chance, seeing how he handled that first serve of Riley Opelka off the block return. So in the spirit of Bierhall Freitag, which you're not supposed to say before the music rolls, do comment below. Do you think any of those bozos in Rafa's section can stop him from getting to a final and having a Grand Slam final rematch with Danny Medvedev? That is definitely the match I am hoping to see. Of course, Sasha Zverev, you would think he's got a really good chance to beat Rafa Nadal, but when things get tight, who do you trust? Comment below. Who do you trust? Who do you put your money on? Rafa or Sasha Zverev? I, of course, will go with Rafa Nadal. Guten Abend and welcome to an exciting edition of Bierhall Freitag. This evening on tap, we've got Warsteiner, my favorite Pilsner in the whole world. Gottenhimmel, let's get started with one comment. Of course, some people don't know what Bierhall Freitag is all about. And Bierhall Freitag is a true democracy here. It's when I give up some of my power as editor-in-chief of Coffee Break Tennis, and I read comments, all kinds of comments, a great variety of comments, maybe some comments that I normally wouldn't go to, but I give them the benefit of doubt today because it is open to everyone who comments below, especially patron saints. God bless the patron saints. Actually, ironically, I don't think I have any patron saint comments here today, but I have a ton of comments from below. So let's just look at one really quick, and then we'll look at the rest of the draw, talk about the tennis, and then we'll go into Bierhall Freitag comments. First, LSB, longtime participant in Bierhall Freitag. That lizard tongue is not a healthy color, Matt. Take a look. Join the discussion below. What is wrong with Nick Kyrgios's tongue? Are there any doctors out there? Because we need your professional opinion. Nick Kyrgios, is it a dietary thing? Is it maybe he's sticking his tongue in a place where you shouldn't stick your tongue that could change its color? Don't take that as you will. Don't know what that means myself. Who knows? Maybe it's a liver issue. Maybe he's drinking a lot. Very interesting observation from LSB. Now, before we continue with Bierhall Freitag comments, let's go back into the draw and look at some matches that we have coming up tonight. Medvedev and Van de Zandschulp. one thing I heard commentators point out, because look at the score. 6-4, he drops the first set, but then 6-0, 4-0. Richard Gasquet, unfortunately, couldn't hang and had to retire in that match despite winning the first set. Now, last time he played Medvedev, he had come off some pretty exhausting matches at the U.S. Open. Last time he played him in a Grand Slam. I don't know if they played after. I don't think they did. Anyways, Medvedev is coming off a match with Kyrgios that was probably pretty mentally and emotionally and physically draining. Medvedev was definitely working very hard with some of the shots Kyrgios was hitting. Later on, maybe Kyrgios not working as hard on the return of serve, but Kyrgios definitely ran him around. Will this be any different? Of course, this is a different surface than the U.S. Open. We shall see, but I'm going to take Medvedev. He is my favorite to come through. I really think the most challenging thing will be Maximus Cressius. O'Connell playing well here. Great win over Diego Schwartzman. That was an exciting first set. I didn't see the second and third sets, but I watched that first set, which Shorty D had his chances and will feel pretty upset that he didn't win it. But O'Connell, who I saw upset Sinner here in Atlanta, has a great serve, and he'll have a chance against Cressy, but I like Cressy here. I saw a little bit of that Meshack match. Cressy was very upset in French. Haven't heard him before yelling angrily in French, but he was doing it in the second set when he lost that one. Anyways, I like Cressy to come through, and I think he could be somewhat challenging, kind of like Kyrgios. It's just like a weird opponent for Medvedev, but I like Medvedev to come through. His quarterfinal, wouldn't shock me to see Dirty Dan come through here. I guess Rublev is the favorite. Watching Carlos Alcaraz yesterday against Berrettini, full credit to Berrettini for surviving that thing, but Alcaraz, you see his forehand, and you just start visualizing it won't be that long from now in the future where that thing is like the best shot on tour. Now, ironically, in the final 10-point tiebreak, it was kind of the forehand that let him down, Alcaraz. But overall, that is an incredible weapon. What a beast. And the movement is insane. Also, the hands that the guy possesses. I mean, maybe this is all, who cares, because pretty soon Alcaraz is going to be beating everyone. Anyways, Felix Auger, he also has a forehand kind of like that. It's a lot of potential there. I'm sure most people would pick him to come through here against Dirty Dan, but man, Dirty Dan has been on fire. And he got a walkover in his last match. Sometimes that hurts people not getting extra repetition, but since he's the older player here against Felix Auger, I think Dirty Dan, who loves that sweet candy so much, I think he might be able to come through here and really make those Canadians upset, who had their hopes. They had so much hope for Milos Raonic. Marin Cilic, finalist here, losing in 2018 Australian Open final to Roger Federer, of course. Could he come through Rublev? I'll go with Rublev here. Wouldn't shock me to see Dirty Dan somehow come through. Bottom line is, I think Medvedev is on his way to the final, but who would his semifinal opponent be? Tsitsipas, Jannik Sinner, Roberto Bautista Agut, who is touted as somebody that would be very challenging for Medvedev to play, who kind of does the same thing Medvedev does. Deep, flat balls, like a robot, doesn't miss, incredible wheels, gets, all over the court, gets everything back, and maybe more patience than Danny Medvedev. He has more patience than Medvedev. Although Fritz is looking pretty good here, and we do have, I think it made it into the Bierhall Freitag questionnaire here. We'll take a look at that in a second. Anyways, I like Sinner to come through, although Alex Demon, this is as good as of a look as he's ever going to get to make his way into the quarterfinals. So give Demon a shot, but I'm going to take Jannik Sinner to come through here. Tsitsipas or Bautista Agut. Fritz has a chance, get a great serve, and this is a good surface for someone with Fritz's skill set. Tough call here. Tsitsipas or Sinner, though. I'm going to go with one of those, and I think Medvedev beats them both on this surface. All right, let's dive right into Bierhall Freitag. Now, I can't get to everybody on Bierhall Freitag, but I think I've got a good 15 comments here to go through, and they're all interesting. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it in. And I'm sure there's interesting ones that didn't make it in that I missed. I am only human, as they say. Bierhall Freitag, it won't answer all of your questions. Well, I do not know what to say about the mystery of La Pared, but it is very dubious indeed. Won't solve all the mysteries, but it'll do its best. All right, let's go to MTiz. Looks cold outside. No player in the Open era has backed up their first Grand Slam win by winning the next Slam tournament. Murray got close at AO 2013, but it's never, ever been done. One of those spooky tennis stats working against Medvedev. Yeah, very interesting. But, this one works out really well. Medvedev, best hardcourt player in the world right now besides Djokovic. Djokovic is gone. Beat Djokovic, who was looking good in straight sets. Thumped him at the U.S. Open last year. So I like what Tom R. replied below. Medi doesn't care for these stats. As Medvedev, Danny Medvedev would probably say, I don't care about bullshit stats. Something like that, Medvedev would say. Let's go to Luke Caney. Medvedev is winning the AO this year. After the match last night, I just honestly don't see anyone taking him out, and I feel like this could be the start of a smashing hardcourt career for the young man. I see at least 10 hardcourt Grand Slams for the Meds. Yeah, Med always struck me as a 10 Grand Slam sort of guy, says Alex George. Yeah, looking that way. Medvedev is going to be dominant on the hardcourts for a while. I don't know, maybe someone like a Sinner or Carlos Alcaraz is going to be able to challenge him in the future, but when you just look out there, I mean, Zverev too. Let's not leave out Sasha Zverev. But, that's what you got to do with these kind of questions. Like, look out, okay, who is going to be beating Medvedev in the Australian Open and then the U.S. Open? And also on grass, I think Medvedev is dangerous there too. He's getting better. Let's go to Alex Obed. This is a good one. For Bierhall Freitag, Friday, add accent at will. Freitag! Who's your favorite all-time tennis player other than RF? This is a really hard question for me to answer. I've always been really big on the big three. I'm always going to have a big attachment to those guys for the rest of my life, I would think. Even Djokovic, who is the favorite of Mr. GOAT because he thinks Mr. GOAT is so cold and calculating when it comes to seizing prey and eating food. And he sees Djokovic in a similar light, cold, calculated, and seizing upon victory after victory. He does nothing but win, no matter what. Mr. GOAT does nothing but take, steal, and receive food, no matter what. I'm tempted to say Rafa. I was a big Tommy Haas fan. I loved watching Andy Roddick. It's probably Rafa. Probably the most attached to Rafa. Although I almost want to say I love the big three equally. I'm always going to love Federer the most. I try to copy Federer's game when I play tennis. I'm probably a little bit more like a Rafa type. Obviously, I'm nowhere near as good as Rafa, but the way I actually play, I'm a little more Rafa-like than Roger-like than I would want to admit. Who do you favor of the following Americans? Yeah, Opelka, Fritz, Korda. Well, as you all know, I hate Korda. I don't hate him, but not very big on him. Not surprised to see him go down. Opelka, not impressed. So I got to pick Fritz out there, even though I make fun of him too. But I feel like Fritz has a lot of talent, and he just seems more likable to me. I don't know why. Would you want to coach Nick Kyrgios? Have you reached out? Why not? No, I haven't reached out. Probably because me and Peter Freeman from Crunch Time Coaching, head sponsor of Coffee Break Tennis, we had a chance to sit down and do a personal 2-on-1 interview with Nick Kyrgios at Cincinnati in 2017. We were in the press room with press passes and everything. And then they called over the loudspeaker Crunch Time Coaching, Nick Kyrgios is waiting for you in the private interview room. And we'd put in requests to talk to Nadal and other people, and everyone said no. We talked to Kamal Murray, who I think has a podcast now about tennis. He was coaching Sloane Stephens at the time. It was a pretty good interview, and a guy named Othman was there with him too. Anyways, Kyrgios, of course, he said, yeah, I'm up for it, mate. And when they called over the speaker, the intercom, it was kind of garbled and hard to hear, and we weren't sure if they were actually saying what we thought they were saying. So we ended up not going. We thought, let's wait and see if they say it again, and they never said it again. So I stiffed Nick Kyrgios, basically, me and Pete. So maybe that's why. Would you want to coach Nick Kyrgios? I don't think anyone does, because I think he's kind of uncoachable because he's not dedicated to developing the game. What is it? How are you going to, it's like the worst tennis lesson to teach, and in the same way with teaching music lessons too, or anything, I'm sure. But I remember a drum teacher I had who was very angry with me because I wasn't practicing my drums. I was just coming in and doing, the stuff during the drum lesson and then not practicing what he told me to work on. And I remember he was very mad, and I ended up quitting not long after that. He kind of scared me out of there. And now, years later, teaching tennis, sometimes, when you're teaching someone who's not really into it, luckily for me, everyone I'm teaching right now is pretty into it. But in the past, I've had, kids I've taught who are not very into it, and it's horrible. It's very boring. They don't put any effort. So if you're coaching at Kyrgios, I imagine it'd be a little bit like that. You feel like he's not taking it serious, and maybe that's why Nick Kyrgios almost never has a coach or doesn't stick with the same coaches very long. Who do you think will end up in the top 10 by the end of the year? This is an intriguing question. Let's go to La Computadora. La Pared. So when you look at the top 10 here, the first thing you got to do is say, well, who's coming out? Djokovic, maybe, because they're not going to let him play anymore, bastards. Medvedev, no. Zverev, no. Tsitsipas, no. Rafa, no, but you never know when his career could end if some horrible injury is right down the road. But I'm going to say no, because I think Rafa's going to keep it together for a couple more years for sure. Rublev, maybe, but probably not. Berrettini, maybe. Casper Ruud, much more likely. Felix Auger, much more likely. Jannik Sinner, yeah, more likely. A lot of times these young guys, they make it up there and then they drop down. And maybe we'll find one of them as we go below. So now let's look down below. We see some opportunity here in the bottom, right? Maybe Sinner or Felix or Casper Ruud or Berrettini could fall out. Maybe even Rublev, but those top 5, I don't see them moving anytime soon. Hubie Hurkacz, is he gonna fly up the rankings? Everyone was pretty high on him, but what a horrible start. Maybe he had COVID. There was a comment that said that in the spirit of Bierhall Freitag. We'll repeat it, but I couldn't find anything about it on the internet, although it is very hard to find any information about Hubie Hurkacz because most people are not too interested in Hubie Hurkacz. Cameron Norrie. No, I don't see him shooting up. Maybe, but he's had a bad start here. He could make it in there, possibly, Cameron Norrie. He could be 10-9, but nah. Diego Schwartzman, you always give Diego a chance. Shapo, yes, this is a guy we could see go up there, but do you trust him right now? Karatsev, possibly, but he just dropped a bunch of points, so no. Dominic Thiem, yeah, that's someone who should be able to get back in there. Federer, it's a big maybe. If Federer comes back healthy and wins Wimbledon, yeah, he'll be right back there, but that's a big maybe. Roberto Bautista Agut, possibly, but I think he's going to hang in that 10 to 20 range, 10 to 30, most likely. Christian Green, no, I think his serve is not good enough. Monfils, yes, he always has a shot at doing it, but who's he going to take the place of? Could you see Monfils taking Sinner or Felix's spot or Casper Ruud's spot? Maybe. Pablo Carreño Busta, probably not. Let's go to the next 20, which even less likely, right? Taylor Fritzy Boy, no. Basilashvili, no. Dirty Dan, and I'm saying no like so easily. Like look at John Isner. He was hanging around a spot like this, and he made it to the top 10 not that long ago. Any of these guys can have an incredible Grand Slam result and maybe win a Masters 1000, especially now that the big three aren't winning all of them, or have a finals appearance in a Masters 1000 and have a semifinal or a finals appearance in a major. So any of these guys could get really hot at the right time and make a quick appearance in the top 10, maybe finish the year there, but it's really hard I can't remember who said it. Multiple times it's been said by different tennis experts out there, but I love this. The space, the journey from 100 in the world to 10 in the world, that is easier. It's easier to make that journey from ranked 100 to 10 than it is to make from 10 to 1, right? It's so hard to get to number 10 in the world. And then once you get there, moving up is even more difficult because there's such a difference between those top guys, especially those top 5 guys. And that still holds pretty true. I think the first time I heard that was several years ago. Dimitrov, I don't think he's going to go back to the top 10. Cilic, probably not. Sonego, maybe. He's a guy where, he's young enough, and if he has some amazing results in some places, you could see him there, but I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that stays there for a long time. Riley Opelka, I'm saying no. I know a lot of people believe in him. I don't think he's going to be a mainstay in the top 10. Maybe like Isner, he'll make it up there. And it's also hard to say because who's going to be around, 5 years from now. We're talking about the end of the year, but 5 years from now, maybe the whole tennis landscape changes and some of these names that you just can't imagine they're this year will be there. Karen Khachanov, no. Carlos Alcaraz, yes. This year, tough to say. He's 18, but he does look like big three type material. Fabio Fognini, I'm not saying Carlos is going to win 20 majors, but if you had to pick any young guy, what a talent. Fabio Fognini, no. Lloyd Harris, no. Francis Tiafoe, no. Martin Fucsovics, that's his goal. He's wanted to be top 10 for a long time. Fucsovics, a lot of these guys are going to peak in their early 30s. Fucsovics is at 29. A lot of things to like about Fucsovics, but I'm going to say maybe he never makes his goal of top 10. Filip Krajinovic, no. Bublik, no. Even though he's extremely talented. Federico Debonis, no. Dusan, no. Ugo, maybe. This year, no. Tommy Paul, no. Alex de Minaur, no. I sound like a spoiled little kid. All right, Alex Obed, he's getting a lot here. Let's keep going, though, because I'm having fun. Alex Obed had a good one. What's your prediction on Karatsev 2022? Tough to say. Where was he in the rankings? We were just looking at it. Let's go back really quick. Where was he? My prediction of Karatsev is that he missed out on a lot of points. He just dropped a lot of points. He should have found a way through Mannarino. It's going to hurt him to be top 10 by the end of this year because this is, his best major. I think he can be good at the U.S. Open. He's good on clay, too. I like Karatsev, but as I was saying, which of those top 10 guys is he going to take their spot? I think Karatsev is going to be... I think he's going to hang around. I don't think he's going to just disappear from the game, right? He came out of nowhere last year. I think he's still going to be a tough guy, but he's going to have a bit of a sophomore slump, most likely. We see that a lot. Guys do really well for the first time in 1 year, and then the next year they kind of cool off. Other guys figure out their game a little bit. I think we've already seen some of that with Karatsev, but I do like Karatsev. He is a freaking beast. So hard to say where he will finish. I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a slight slump, but he's definitely not going to fall out of the top 50 in the world. What's your prediction? Oh, will you challenge Gil Gross to a tennis match? Can you take him? And then he has some comments here. Your Kyrgios accent had some Dami in it. It's so hard to flip from accents. Dominic Thiem, your accents are impressive. Your all-time best performance was Djokovic rap after FO. That was actually after the Australian Open when he won last year. Then I just kind of copy and pasted that song because it was so good. It is, I think, my best performance here. Nick is a showman, pure and simple. He feeds off of it. He loves the limelight. He is an entertainer. Are you not entertained? I'm so entertained. Oh, and even in doubles, Nick has been amazing. I don't know if Gil Gross is a tennis player. He's good at broadcasting. I saw that he was on the radio broadcast for the U.S. Open last year. So, congrats to him. That was kind of a dream gig for me. I've always loved listening to those, believe it or not, I like listening to it, especially when I'm driving to go teach a tennis lesson. I love listening to the radio broadcast. Could I take him? Yeah, probably. I think I'd take most of the tennis talk guys out there on YouTube just because I'm on court hitting forehands and backhands almost every day. And I play, league matches pretty frequently. And I have a guy who's a good player that I practice with a lot, and we play sets. Sometimes we'll play 3 sets. We recently had, did we go to 3 tie breaks? We had 3 sets that were 7-6, 7-5, 7-6. So I hit a lot of tennis balls. I did play Mr. Slice, and I did bagel him, but that was 4 years ago now. And I've seen a video of him on Instagram where it looks like he's worked on his game. He's looking a lot better. So I think I would still beat him because I've gotten a lot better too. But he's definitely better than he was then. Critics at Large 007 sounds like Joker to keep his YouTube channel going. Yeah, the thing with me and Joker is that I've always liked Joker, but when he beat Federer at Wimbledon, every time he's beat him there, I kind of hated him, or at least I was, so upset. It's hard to say, I love Djokovic after that. You really want to see Federer win at Wimbledon. I can handle Djokovic beating him anywhere else, but at Wimbledon, I always didn't like Djokovic beating him, but I'm not going to deny Djokovic's greatness, and the more I see people just trash him and hate on him for no good reason, it's made me come to defend Djokovic a lot more. So nothing to do with staying relevant in YouTube tennis talk because Djokovic is still the big story out there. I've always liked the guy, And, I'm close in age to Nadal and Djokovic and Murray, so I feel a little bit of a connection to them like that also. So I'm going to root for those guys because they're my generation. They're born the year after me. Abby C says, "Hi, Matt. I'm a huge Rafa fan. So for your Friday thing, could you talk about why Rafa could not win more AO titles as opposed to U.S. Open, where he has 4 titles?" Well, one, Rafa's he's run into a lot of injury issues at the AO, going way, way back. I think when Rafa, it's famous in his legend that he won the French Open the first time he played it, but he would have played it the year before, and maybe he could have won it then. But he didn't play it the year before because I believe an injury that happened at the Australian Open, and I think it's this foot injury. Didn't literally start there, but it was aggravated there, and they weren't sure if Rafa would be able to keep playing. They thought his career might be over right there. So one, Rafa's had some bad luck at the AO over the years. Two, we talked about 2019, maybe the best Rafa's ever looked at the Australian Open, at least in recent years, especially as far as taking the ball earlier and changing up his strategy for a faster hard court. And he ran into Djokovic. So that's a big problem there too. Rafa's had some bad draws at the Australian Open. It's always a bad draw when you got to play Djokovic. The year 2017 where Djokovic, and 2018 for that matter, where Djokovic wasn't there, those were years where Federer played great. Rafa ran into Federer in 2017. That would have been his year to win it. So you got that. On top of that, Rafa, the U.S. Open tends to be grittier and bounce higher. And that's always helped Rafa's ball. His forehand can get so high on a righty's backhand, one-hander or two-hander. It's not a great thing to deal with, even if it's easier for a two-hander. So that's always been a thing. The ball doesn't bounce as high at the Australian Open, at least in recent years. That's been a big factor there, too. Talking about the AO final in 2012, I didn't watch in 2012 tennis as closely as far as all players. I watch all players now because I do this show. Maybe not. I would probably not watch tennis as much as I do if I hadn't started this YouTube channel, which I kind of did by accident, just because I was frustrated with people saying Federer was toast. 2012, I mean, I remember it, but I didn't watch it as closely. I can't remember everything that happened that year in the draw because I can't even remember how Federer lost that year. But back in 2012, I watched every Federer match. When Federer lost, I was kind of so heartbroken when Federer was out that I wouldn't really watch. I did watch the final, but not all of it. Kind of painful to watch finals without Roger. I can't even tell you. I guess Rafa played in the 2012 Australian Open final, but I can't tell you who he lost to. I'm guessing Djokovic. 2017, I can tell you all about. That was an incredible final in 2017. He had just come off a tough match. Dimitrov having a great run all the way to the semifinals. Tough match there where for Dimitrov, Rafa comes through there and plays Roger. And I remember the biggest thing I remember from 2017 is Patrick McEnroe saying how he saw Rafa practicing, full steam ahead. Hit some Bierhall Freitag. And then he said he saw Roger practicing and Roger looked like he almost thought he might have been injured because Roger was practicing at such a low energy, low speed, casual practice. And then when Roger's winning, he realized Roger was just saving every little thing he had for Rafa. Of course, it was a very even match. It was, I say, maybe the greatest match. I mean, 2008 Wimbledon's probably better. But 2017 Australian Open final, that's one of the greatest matches of all time. One of my favorite all-time matches. I remember watching it the next day on a recording. Somehow didn't spoil it for me. I didn't know who won. And I truly thought Nadal was going to win, especially when he goes up. Was it 3-1? 3-1 or 4-1 in the final, in the fifth set. And then Roger reels off 5 games in a row to beat Rafa. I'd say if I had to explain why, the biggest thing was that, and you see it when you look at the highlights, Rafa just running that same play that he trusted would get him through it, that cross-court high, which bounces lower here at the Australian Open, of course, high bouncing forehand to the one-handed backhand. Roger was stepping in and taking it on the rise so early and so aggressive. People called it the Neo backhand of Roger. That is really the biggest takeaway from that 2017 Australian Open final, and it kind of shocked Rafa. Higher bouncing Indian Wells court, all the commentators thought that Rafa was going to get his revenge there, and Roger still slapping that backhand like crazy. I mean, he did it the Aussie, he did it in Miami, he did it in Indian Wells, and he won all 3 of those tournaments. And he absolutely destroyed Rafa in the Miami final. And pretty sure, he beat him pretty easy 2 straight sets in Indian Wells, despite the higher bounce, better conditions. Builders, Encode rackets for life. Yeah. This is the racket that Roger started using, I believe, in 2006. And this is what they call a Wilson Encode. As you know, it's a marketing thing. They change them up all the time, but it's a kind of a unique racket. It's a 90-inch head. I used to use these things a lot. I think that's why my serve is so accurate, because I always used a 90-inch racket for so long. And that helped me develop some accuracy. And that 97-inch, even though it's a lot bigger, which I did switch to when I play. I don't play with that anymore. I just use it for the show because it's a really cool racket. And it's a little piece of tennis history, especially if you're a big Federer fan. Sux, X-U-X, which I think pronounces like Sux. Nick's future may be a commentator on tennis, a conflicting one, but press love that so. No future as a tennis player. Yeah, Nick definitely has, if he wants it, he can be a commentator. I agree on that. I'm not going to say no future yet. I know a lot of people are like, why are you surprised that Nick is still like this? Excuse me, on Bierhall Freitag, there's lots of belching. I'll try to do my best to keep it away from the microphone, not to disgust any viewers out there. I just, for some reason, silly me, I hope that Nick is going to come around still. I'm going to hold out hope until he retires. C3, Kyrgios, a similar comment here. Kyrgios is going to be holding out for wild cards once he drops out of the top 100. Once those dry up, he'll retire and become a media personality. Well, let's go to La Computadora. Nick Kyrgios is now ranked 115 in the world. You may be asking yourself how. Now, I do agree with the comment. He's going to be getting a ton of wild cards. But you may be saying to yourself, how did this happen? Well, let's take a look. His points. He still is hanging on to round of 16 points from the Aussie in 2020 because remember, they drop off at the end of this month, 10 days away. I don't know when exactly those best of your results from whichever tournament you did better at, whichever year for the last 2 years. But yeah, I mean, this year everything's going to drop off. That the COVID rankings are pretty much over. Wimbledon 2021, he's got 90 points there. He's going to need those. He got 648 total. That puts him at 115. What did he get here? Was this a second round he just lost to Medvedev? What are second round points? Like 20 or something. I can't remember exactly. So he's going to need to have a good showing at Wimbledon. He's going to get wild cards everywhere, so he's not going to have to drop to the minor leagues yet. But, he might need to do it to get that ranking going because, he can't get a wild card. Well, he might literally get wild cards everywhere. He is big money Nick. Look at his Masters 1000s. Those are all from 2019. Incredible. They're all going to fall off pretty soon. In Miami, which he should go there. I was actually there in 2019 with my mom watching that match where he got defaulted against Borna Coric, you might remember. ATP Masters 1000 Canada. 5 points. Yeah, that's not much. But the 45 points, the Wimbledon points, he's going to need those. The 180 and Australian Open are gone. Washington, that's going to be gone. I guess he gets, so we get to hang on this until summer. That's kind of silly that 3 years later, some of these points, the COVID rules are kind of bogus, if you ask me. Queens Club 2019, that's coming up. He could go there and do well there. I mean, he should be able to win there. Acapulco, 0 points. Okay. So that's coming up soon, too. How does he not have any points from there? I'm surprised. He won it in 2019. I'm confused how this point system is working. Didn't he win it in 2019? Was that when? Atlanta, he hasn't been there in a while. Oh, was he there last year? Oh, yeah, he lost earlier than I showed up to see any of the matches. I remember that now. So, hence the tiny 20 points. Not many points, but there is some hope for Nick Kyrgios. He should be able to rack up some points from some wild cards. He could get hot somewhere and win an ATP 250. Will he even be motivated enough to do that, though? He doesn't really care about the ATP 250s usually. Let's go to Ray Chien, which is dog in French. My non-tennis friends are more likely to know Nick Kyrgios than Djokovic. Up until last week, that is. Yeah, the whole world knows Djokovic now. That's how popular the guy is. Some people play to be the best. Some people play for money. Some play for titles. Let Nick Kyrgios decide what he plays for. Well put. Luke Caney said, there was a poll put up last year in the U.S. It asked people the first person they could think of in tennis. 30% said Kyrgios, 40% Federer. Djokovic, Nadal, and Murray all got the rest, but Kyrgios in front of them. That'll tell you something right there. Yeah, Kyrgios is, he's dynamite. He's box office gold. Anirudh Poruri. was having a good conversation with my director at the place I teach tennis about Kyrgios. He was saying how he actually likes Kyrgios and would get annoyed when some of the older adults he teaches would talk about how he's immature. Yeah, older tennis-loving folks tend to feel that way about Nick, but they still want to go see him play. Everyone does. Disrespectful, bad for tennis, etc. He said he's good for tennis because of his antics and immaturity, like John McEnroe, which is a good change up from all the poker face serious players out there. He also said he doesn't mind his behavior in his comments because Kyrgios is honest about his intentions, which is that's pretty much how I feel too. The final point he made, which I never thought of, was the fact that Kyrgios would entice more kids to get into the sport because of his behavior. Without players like Kyrgios and with the persistent effort to stick to traditions, tennis would be extremely stale and catered towards the older audience, pushing away the younger generation from the sport. I fully agree with him. And you know what? I have one thing to add to that. Great comment. I agree with everything. I'll add one thing. You hear these ideas like, let's make tennis faster. Let's do sets that only go to 4 games. Let's get rid of best of 5 sets. This will make it more appealing to young people. Like the scoring is always going to be confusing, right? When I teach kids, they love tennis. They're getting really into it. They struggle with the love 15, 30, 40 thing and all that stuff. So changing that, I don't think it's going to do very much. This is what moves the meter. This is what's going to do it. When I first got into tennis, my favorite player was Tommy Haas because he was freaking out and smashing rackets and screaming in German, which I thought was really cool. I was all about Tommy Haas, but back then, and looks like we're going back to that, ESPN's coverage has been pretty terrible. If you don't have ESPN Plus, you really can't watch the tennis. You can see some women's matches and a little bit of the men playing is kind of how they're doing it. And they cut it off early. There used to be like every day you got 10 hours of coverage. Now you get like 3 or 4. It's pretty pathetic. So back then, you didn't get all the coverage, right? You only got the big names. And more of the men, less of the women. You did see all the Federer matches, so at least they did that. But I didn't get to see Tommy Haas until like the end of the tournament. He'd always lose in semifinals and majors back then, it seemed like. So I had to pick a new favorite player, and I went with Federer because he had a one-handed backhand too, and I really liked one-handed backhands. I thought they looked cooler. And that was actually a funny thing, my favorite was Tommy Haas. Let's go to Dio Brando, who got a lot of people going here. He got 12 replies on this. Matt, why do people don't enjoy Medvedev? He's so different and unique. He was quite interesting technique and tactics. Anyone should enjoy his matches, but some don't. I just don't get it. D Pistons, I don't get it either. Somion, because his strokes are visually unappealing. I really like his personality, though. Dio Brando says, isn't that a good thing? It's different. It gives us variety. If everyone had the same type of technique, we wouldn't want to be able to tell them apart. Then again, some people don't like anything that's different than usual. Critics at large, awful and ugly forehand. Not stylish at all. Med has ugly tennis. I mean, it is kind of ugly. The backhand... not so much. It's a little weird, but the way he uses it, I find it very interesting. I like to watch what he does to his opponents with it and what kind of footwork nightmares he puts them into. Sucks says he plays ugly, but I like him. Great personality. And then some more Medvedev stuff below that. Get to that in a second. Yeah, just to say that's why, I guess. And, sometimes... I don't know. This is a hard thing because Pete Freeman himself said that Medvedev is boring. Then he kind of changed his tune and said he's starting to find Medvedev pretty interesting. John McEnroe said he is most interested in watching Medvedev because it's such a weird way to play tennis. It's so much different than everyone else. I agree with McEnroe there. I at first wasn't big on Medvedev. I didn't find anything too exciting about him. But as the years go by, these guys grow on you, and it was his personality, to go back to that Kyrgios point. Medvedev's personality, flicking off the crowd in New York City, that's when I really started to love Medvedev. I mean, anyone who starts winning, I start paying attention, start winning big matches, start challenging the best players in the game. But yeah, ultimately, I think a lot of people think his game is ugly, but they'll come around, and Medvedev, he's going to be less interesting because he's so much more mentally focused now, perhaps, you could argue. But he's a great interview. If you stick around and listen to the Encore interview, he's always funny. He always delivers. He's even, maybe even better in the press room. But yeah, I guess ultimately that's why, maybe because he's a Russian dude. Some people just find that less appealing, less relatable, I should say. Those are my excuses for maybe why people don't like him. But Andrew Brooks has a comment here related to Medvedev. Medvedev showed he is the real deal, going to take home more slams than Murray and Wawrinka in the end. Then Prime Mujica pointed out, yeah, that's true, but unfair. Murray and Wawrinka had to go through the big three at their peak for like 10 to 12 years. Not so much with Medvedev. Huge difference. Andrew Brooks did come back with a good zinger, though. He said, well, how about last year when Medvedev took out super Grand Slam Novak Djokovic? And also, didn't Murray beat Milos Raonic to win his second Wimbledon. Fair points all across the board. Hit the music. We're going to get out of here. Henry Sanji, I think it's pretty obvious Nick has no intention in taking it serious. He's happy where he is, and we got what we wanted out of the match. This was by far the most entertaining match so far, and probably for the rest of the tournament, and that's all I want him. He's going to continue to play every so often. He's going to get wild cards because he's money, baby. He's money. Simple as that. If he drops out of top 100, he retires, of course. Well, he already did. But of course, that's not happening anytime soon. Well, of course it did. I know it's shocking. I had to look it up to double check myself. He would have destroyed Tsitsipas or Nadal playing like this. I don't know about Nadal. And could have taken Zverev for a ride, as he always does. Yeah, maybe. He's going to win a few more tournaments. I do agree with that. He's going to have to get back in the top 100. Thanks for joining us for an exciting edition of Bierhall Freitag. Gosh, the German words aren't flowing to my brain like they used to. Maybe because I haven't done Duolingo hardly at all for the last few years. Anyways, Guten Tag, Guten Abend, and we'll see you tomorrow to talk about all of the latest matches at the Australian Open and how that draw is shaking out. Of course, we'll be projecting the future. Is it going to be Rafa and Medvedev? Oh, I sure hope so. See ya!